So there are, for the sake of this discussion, three major parallel tarots that we're going to talk about. And there is the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, there is the Crowley Thoth tarot, and there is the Marseilles tarot. And the Marseilles tarot is obviously the oldest tarot of the three. It emerged out of France. My sense is the Marseilles are the first tarots to be numbered. Many people would say that the occult traditions basically start with the numbering of the tarot cards, so that the Viscontis, which are unnumbered, sort of represents the earliest stage, and they're more associated to gaming. I'm not sure I really buy that, but obviously some kind of formalization is happening. The other thing to note about the Marseilles, which is start to number the cards, is that there's obviously the printing presses involved, and this is the point at which cards are becoming popular. So people, woohoo! My little globe is going on and off. So people are now, the public is able to use tarot cards, because the Visconti cards were not available to the public because they were hand-painted cards. So the printing press is the key. And so it's this democratization, and it's similar to the way the Reformation democratized the Bible. Okay, so the numbers got ascribed to the trumps. And the Marseilles ordering is basically 0 the Fool, 1 the Magician, 2 the High Priestess, 3 the Empress, 4 the Emperor, 5 the Hierophant, 6 the Lovers, 7 the Chariot, 8 Justice, 9 the Hermit, 10 the Wheel of Fortune, 11 Strength, 12 the Hanged Man, 13 the Unnamed card, or what we now call Death, 14 the Temperance, 15 the Devil, 16 the Tower, 17 the Star, 18 the Moon, 19 the Sun, 20 the Last Judgment, and 21 the World. And so the thing to notice, of course, is that the Justice and Strength are in a different position in the Marseilles deck than in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So since the Rider-Waite-Smith deck comes afterwards, we have to ask ourselves, why did Waite or Mathers, as I've heard attributed to this move, why did they change that? Why did they switch that out? I mean, it's actually quite simple. When you try to apply the Hebrew alphabet in order, Aleph through Tau, which already carries the signs of the zodiac, the planets, and the elements, when you run that in order, side by side with the tarot, from the Fool as Aleph, all the way to Tau, it pretty much completely lines up, except you get in the 9th position, Tet. You'd imagine an image of, because it's Leo, you'd imagine an image of a lion, but you get in the Marseilles tradition the woman with the scales. And by the time you get down to the 11th position, which is, or rather the 12th position, which is the letter Lamed, which is an ox goad, and assigned to Libra, well, you see Strength, the lion. So they swapped that out, because what they saw was that, and let's have a look here. They saw was that basically in the Marseilles, going from Aries around, it looks like this: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Libra, Virgo, Leo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Of course, these two have been swapped. It's like a loop or twist has been made in the zodiacal band. And what this results in is the following lineup of energies. And remember, so I've done the Athbash fold, right? I've folded it over. You have Aleph and Ta, Bet and Shin, and looking at the numbers, by the time you get over here to Tet, Tet is here is 11. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Tet is 11, but it should be. It should be 8, right? Excuse me. 7. Oh, I think I drew an extra line in there, but anyway, it's 6, 7, and this should be 8. So this is basically the situation: is that there's this strange numerical inconsistency, and then similarly down here at Lamed. Lamed would fall in the 11th position, but it's been given the value of 8 in the Marseilles Tarot. So what is this? One thing it could be is a blind, and blinds, in theory, blinds are out to keep the ignorant masses from doing the magic, because anyone who doesn't see the pattern will just create a tarot that doesn't work. But of course, it works. It just works in a different way, and it works according to a different logic. But there is a kind of an inconsistency there, and maybe that's not enough to throw it out. And in fact, it's not. I mean, obviously, it's an old tradition. It's a deep tradition. It would be insane of me to suggest that, let's get rid of the Marseilles tradition as a result of that. But I do want to suggest that what I work with in the meta magic as the foundational chassis, if you will, the foundational armature, is the RWS. And the reason is because the RWS is the only one of these 3 decks that legitimately produces these Athbash pairs of 21 that create the ripple field. And the ripple field is really what I want to be creating with this system. This is the ripple field. We talked about it. These different bands. This comes out of the RWS's restoration of the zodiac to its natural order. So here's the zodiac in its full natural order: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And this basically is like so. Right? And all of these Athbash pairs total 21. And as we've discussed, this opens up the ripple field and also suggests that each pair is like a little hexagram totaling 21, giving us this very beautiful heuristic about the relationship of the Fool to the universe as being the paradigmatic relationship. The fundamental mobile twist that every single tarot card really is a variation of that. Okay, so why then so much fuss about the Crowley heuristic? Where did I put my? There they are. Okay, so the players here are the star. You can see the star has been given the letter Heh, right? And the emperor. And the emperor has been given the letter Tzaddi. And now this is contrary to both the Marseilles and the RWS system. But interestingly enough, and I'll show it to you here, interestingly enough, you can see that Heh and Tzaddi are, excuse me, where we go. Heh and Tzaddi have been swapped out, but they were an Athbash pair in the first place. That's very interesting because, of course, Lamed and Tet are not Athbash pairs. They don't sort of beg to be transposed in the same way that these Athbash pairs do. If you want to know the power of Athbash, one of the cool formula is Baphomet is Sophia. You can take the word Baphomet, Bet, Pe, Mem, Tau, and you swap that out. Bet is Shin, Athbash. Bet is Shin. Aleph is. Oh no, it's sorry. Yeah. the Baphomet Bet Pe Mem Ta becomes Shin Va Yod Aleph. Sophia. I mean, it's a bit rough, but that the Baphomet, the devil god, and or the as above, so below alchemical figure of the Templars, who has become kind of an image of the modern devil, and Sophia, wisdom. So there's this secret relation. That's the power of Athbash. So this stuff is pretty wild. So it's a legitimate move to swap out pairs like that. So Crowley made a pretty elegant move. Why did he make that move? So you can see what this does to the numbering system. I'm going to stick my head over here. So this is the Thoth deck, and forgive me if I've introduced maybe an extra bar in one of these and stuff. You can figure it out. Consider it a blind, right? So the basic idea is, right, so Aleph is 0, 21. Of course, the Marseille issue is still there, right? So once you get to Tet, right? See, I added an extra bar there, but Tet should be 11, and then Lamed is 12, or Lamed is should be 8 in Crowley's. Anyway, the main point is he's left this intact. He knew very well about it, right? He knew about this hitch, but he left it intact. And what he did instead was he did this Athbash swap. So, considering that this is what the Marseille deck looks like, it's all lopsided. Crowley, in responding to this, Tzaddi is not the star in the Book of the Law, and if you want to play that game, one way of doing it, which is how Crowley did it, is transpose Heh and Tzaddi, transpose the letters. And the objective was to go across the zodiac and create another loop, right? So Heh is the emperor, Tzaddi is the star, Heh is Aries, Tzaddi is Aquarius. So he's just created this situation. Instead of this strange loop, it actually starts Aquarius, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Libra, Virgo, Leo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aries, Pisces. So Pisces and Virgo become the pivots where these two loops are made. And of course, the Mobius strip is literally cited as the reason for this. This is creating a mobile loop in the tarot. However, I don't think it actually works. At least not for my purposes. I think the Thoth deck is one of the most brilliant decks that's ever been created. I really like its symbolism, but its fundamental structure is not what's working in my system. And the reason is it doesn't create the ripple field. The ripple field is what this exercise is about producing, because it is a kind of a magic circle circuit of the tarot that has whole energy that flows into it, and it doesn't leak. And I think that the Thoth deck is a bit leaky. It's very powerful, but almost to the point where it has a radiation that it gives forth. And the RWS is basically energetically neutral. It's not as powerful as the Thoth deck imagistically, but it's also, there's a place in the middle of the RWS that you can sit and nothing happens. And that's what I'm going for, because it's in that place where the little feather of Ma'at will dance, in that little eddy created at the neutral point. But we won't really see that in the Thoth deck, which gives forth so much energy, because, okay, so he's ostensibly created balance, but if you look at this, it doesn't actually recreate balance, because the 811 switch is still there, so we don't have active set of Athbash pairs throughout. We don't have 11 Athbash pairs, so we can't basically turn this into 11 fundamental energies, which is what I want to be able to do, without a kind of a dissonance. Okay, but what did he do? He swapped the letters, but does, it's a bit like trying to create a balance. It's not a true symmetricization, is what I'm saying, because he swapped the letters, but not the numbers. As we can see, if you read it in, swapped the letters, but not the signs. So you can see that effectively, and as it goes along, the sequence gets weird. 0, 1, 2, 3, where is it? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is Tzaddi. 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. So basically the letters are now out of order. So now the thing is just basically more out of order than it was before. And I'm not sure, it's like, you're trying to, you've got one shoe on and no shoe on your other foot. And you're trying to compensate for that. I got an empty, a shoeless foot on my right foot. So I put a glove on my left foot. That's what, on my left hand. That's what it feels like to me, looking at this. It looks like, oh look, I've balanced it out. But I don't see that because they're such of a different order. They're in different levels of the operation, of the symbolic operation of the system. So that's why I don't see it as solving the problem. So, or maybe a more parochial solution to the problem of the Tzaddi is not the star. And for this, I have to admit, the first time I read this, I just thought it was a joke. It was like, okay, nice solution. There was a fellow, I met him years ago. I don't know what he's up to now. I know nothing about him other than I read this, and I do attribute sources. His name was Walter DeLong, and I recall him arguing that the solution was Tzaddi is not the star, it is the stars, plural. He pluralized it. And gosh, I thought that this was the lamest thing ever. I thought that this was totally like, okay, well, but you know what? It's an elegant enough solution if you think about it. It isn't a star, right? Tzaddi is not a star. It is stars. It's a star field. The plurality is key. So actually, I think Walter DeLong was correct. That is an apt move. At the end of the day, do we have to try to answer every little hoop? Do we have to jump through every hoop that Liberal sets up? Do we have to solve the big rebus at the end or something? I don't think we do. I do find it elegant though when a solution reveals some insight, as Crowley's did too, because Crowley's Crowley's solution revealed this Athbash pairing that Tzaddi and Heh actually do naturally swap out. One solution that I tried was just I wanted to keep that idea, because there's a really interesting idea that Crowley introduces, which is in a way to depose the emperor. The emperor's power is no longer as demiurge. The emperor has been bestowed the power of Tzaddi, and Tzaddi is starts the word tzaddik, right? The righteous person. So the emperor has been deposed way down the tree, and yet he has a different function, not as ruler, but as perhaps as a repairer. And the star is way up the tree, and of course Heh is number 5 is a 5-pointed star. It makes quite a bit of sense. And yet, so I just at one point just swapped out. Okay, I'm just going to say, Heh is the emperor. The emperor is Tzaddi and Aquarius, and the star is Heh and Aries. But nowadays I just sort of default to the RWS, because at the end of the day, just to put a few thoughts onto the end of this idea of transposing the star and the emperor as a compensation for transposing the or for the pre-existing transposition in the Marseilles of the justice and strength. So I basically don't actually see it as being an effective solution, and I compared it, of course, to compensating for a missing sock by adding a mitten. So why wouldn't you just either take off the sock if you wanted to be barefoot, or put on another sock? So in other words, why does Crowley switch something that's basically different in kind in order to namely the letters, in order to compensate for the numerical switch that we see in the Marseilles? And I think the simplest solution is to see it as a type of a blind. But I realize that there is a great deal of merit in the Thoth deck, and there's a great deal of merit in the Marseilles deck, and there's a great deal of merit in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And we need to get past the type of thinking that says, okay, one of these is good and the rest should be thrown out. At this stage of the game, can we perhaps entertain the idea that all of the tarots are imperfect, but they have different access to different kinds of energy and different kinds of pathway. They do different things, really. So enter my thinking about how to approach tarot is essentially a superposed systems. So the Thoth I'll work with, the Sola Busca I'll work with. For my understanding, the chassis supplied by the ripple field in particular is strong enough to hold basically anything. So it's not a question of discarding. I think having that ability to manifest this set of pairs that I've been talking extensively about is absolutely key, and it creates a kind of poly tarot. And that's really what the tarot should be, right? Because we read the tarot and we draw the stories into ourselves, and we assemble a kind of armature or a kind of inner matrix of memories and ideas. And so this is really the goal, the inner tarot. And so for that reason, I do choose the RWS as the basic blueprint, because, like I said, it has an energetic neutrality. There are, and I have experimented with ways of, say, taking the RWS format where you have the justice as 11 and strength as 8, and also playing with the transposition of Crowley's two cards. And the way that you would do this is not by changing the letters or the numbers. The way would be, and in my first deck that I basically did this, the way would be simply to take Trump 4, which is Aries, and currently the Emperor, and Heh, and Trump 17, which is the Star, and Tzaddi and Aquarius, and just change over the titles. So, okay, what if 4 Heh Aries was the Star? What would that feel like? What would that mean? What if 17 and Aquarius and Tzaddi was the Emperor? What would that feel like? And what it seems to me to do is demand a new set of titles. I wouldn't see an emperor existing in this. I would see perhaps a scientist. So shifting the concept of the masculine governing principle from this ruler model, this emperor model, to a model of a scientist as Aquarius. And this actually will have a ripple effect throughout the whole tarot, because then you can't have the Empress. Who's the Empress? Another way of looking at it is, of course, the Emperor as the urban and the Empress as the rural. If you want to remove this kind of feudalistic language from the tarot, And that I am intuiting is a big part of the thrust towards the Thoth deck, is that it has this anarchism to it. And I'm not inherently opposed to making those kinds of shifts. I am perhaps more conservative now because I think I have retreated from the experiment of shifting the star up to 4 and the Emperor down to 17. The star as 4 is interesting because it does set up this idea that I spoke of earlier, as every man and every woman is a star. Because suddenly the demiurge is essentially a stellar configuration, a matrix, a geometric lattice. And so this could point to the idea of an Adam Kadmon or an Aton kind of figure, this archetypal superhuman that is fundamentally a star of stars. So there is an interesting direction you can take it if you really want to bring the inspiration behind this switch into a system that does still use the ripple field. You can do it, but the way to do it is to just shift the symbols and the names and nothing else. So that might be too radical for many people. Perhaps I'll consider it again. It requires an overhaul of the symbolism. It creates an entirely different ecology. Very interesting, though. I do want to put one last thought out there, because we're talking about the star and the emperor. But so this is again Crowley's deck, and what a marvelous image of the universe. If you look really close, you will see that in lieu of the signs, there's no signs here, but these stars in the background, this is the Shem HaMephorash. You see the 12 signs, each divided into 6, each with 3 sectors. This full Shem HaMephorash will fit into this little grid. It's been color-coded, and look, you can even see the actual constellations behind it, and you can recognize them. And so, what becomes quite apparent is this, I believe, to me, I think this is Pisces, and this is a Libra. In other words, these are the points at which the mobile switch is done. And look, this is a fishhook, meaning Tzaddi. So this is very clearly an indication of this deep structure that's been written into the tarot. So I think there's room to play with it, to experiment with it, to explore it. But I don't think retaining justice as 11 and strength as 8 is ideal, because I want to keep those aspect pairs going, and I want to create the ripple field, and you can't do that. So with that in mind, I'm ultimately hosting all my work on the RWS framework. But that is a short and hopefully informative discussion of the Thoth deck, the Marseilles deck, and the RWS, and how their symbolic configurations differ. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and you have a good idea of the reasoning behind it at this point. So thank you for watching this video, and send me any questions you have. But sit down with the cards and try this stuff out. I mean, really, at the end of the day, magic is a science of experiments. So you got to sit down and write the letters out and try different things out. And don't be afraid to try things out. Don't be afraid to experiment. Because this is how we make discoveries. Awesome.